We start today drifting through the stars and floating down to our world named Opsopuduk. Then we find the continent, Aldla, where today's story will take place. We will stay within Aldla, and, zooming in, we focus on the northeast bit. Yes, this area includes the town of Swamford, but we aren't going to Swamford today. Instead we are traveling north to the nation that borders Aldla's North Sea. This is the nation of Toonbag, and it is the home of a society of gnomes. One of these gnomes in particular catches our interest because he is the now king of Toonbag. He is also a nasty fool, but we will learn more of that as we go forward. But, right now we are talking about the nation of Toonbag. As we said, the northern border is the sea. Toonbag's eastern border is the lands controlled by the dragons. The western border separates Toonbag from the lands of the Candle Power. That is what the gnomes in Toonbag call the wealthy and powerful elves and humans. The Candle Power own the mines throughout the Candle Lands. Few of the most powerful Candle Power actually live in the Candle Lands, but they are the landlords to many, many dwarfs, halflings and gnomes. If you ask someone in Toonbag why they use the word Candle Power, they will tell you the standard story that they learn in gnome school. We say Candle Power because it's just quicker than saying rich and powerful elves and humans. And, so our focus continues down. We find a gnome city. It is full of the plant-based homes that gnomes build. The city looks like a forest of grassy mounds with trees and smokestacks poking out of them. One of the grassy mounds looks bigger. It has bigger trees sticking out of it and more smokestacks. We will zoom into this mound because it is, in fact, a palace. And we will continue to zoom our focus into the palace, so for a few seconds all we see is a green and black blur. Then we will be inside the palace and we will need to adjust to dark vision. The room has a few small windows and no other light source. Gnomes have better dark vision than humans, but even to them, this place has lots of dark corners.
Hello and welcome to this, our latest, new, unique video. We are Wild Art Fly Free and we are all about creativity. In this video we are thinking about how a person who is too stupid to care for a dog is somehow in charge of a nation. But, we are talking about gnomes and dragons and elves and stuff, so, no worries. Okay. So, how do gnomes choose their leaders? Our example gnome leader is named Evermore, but his position as ruler is called the Now King. So, we assume that he has a term limit, but we aren't sure. This is the first video we have made on the topic, so all of these ideas can change. It really depends on what you, our audience, thinks. So what do you think? Anywho, since gnome politics is new to us, we will keep our story vague on the topic until you have a say. So is this a democracy where gnomes have the vote? Do some gnomes have the vote? Do other peoples or even other creatures also have the vote? Or is the Now King job passed down within a family? That would keep things a lot simpler and avoid disputes. Do you agree? What other kinds of governments might the gnomes have? Okay. So we want to say, to support some ideas that we are playing with, that popularity is important to our gnome now King Evermore. He wants to be liked, but mostly that will mean that he will always know who to blame when things go wrong. Because one thing about Evermore is that he never, ever, makes a mistake. At least, he never, ever admits to making a mistake. And he has charisma, and he is an attractive gnome, so his followers believe him, and they are loyal. Does this all make sense? So our most recent videos have been focused on our young adult goblins and their adventures as they make their way across our continent of Aldla. They are just 4 individuals who are trying to find their places in the world. Now to our current video. In this video we'll zoom out to view the international intrigue and politics that Evermore has found himself in. In one of our earlier videos we looked at the ruling dragons in the far eastern end of Aldla. The 3 dragons who have their own lands and rule over the humanoids are Namdrafrom, Trid and Uvex. In that video we learned that the dragons are considering taking over some more of the continent so that they will have a nation for the child of Trid and Uvex. Anywho, we don't need to get into all of that now, just be aware that the dragons are considering a war as one of their options. But the gnome now King, Evermore, doesn't know about this. Anyway, let's let Bunny carry on with the story so that we will have a better idea of what we are dealing with.
Today was a special day for Evermore and he wanted to make the most of it. The special council, Glitstrong, had come from the dragon lands of Namdrafrom to see him. To warn him and the rest of the great nation of Tunbag about the threat from the west. Well, the threat from the Candle lands was no big surprise, really. Evermore had always suspected that the wealthy foreigners just wanted their wealth and didn't care who they hurt. To them, the real people are just ducks that are supposed to waddle along behind and go where they are led. Anyway, what made this day even more special than the visit from the dwarf, Glitstrong, was the gnome bard who had come to record the event in song. Now this was special. Tunbag had some minor bards of its own, of course. But to gain the attention of this revered poet and songwriter, Belly Spark, now this was an honor that the people would remember.
Wise and benevolent Evermore,
Glitstrong said.
I thank you and I bring the special thank you from the Namdrafrom himself.
Evermore liked the sound of that. He checked that. Yes, Belly Spark was taking notes. Evermore stopped himself from repeating the word benevolent. It was a very good word and he really hoped that Belly Spark would include it in the ballad he was composing. Glitstrong went on.
We in the Dragonlands all have a special place in our hearts for the wonderful land of Tunbag. The people of your land, O beloved Evermore, the people of Tunbag sparkle and shine just as the gems that you produce.
Evermore just nodded at Glitstrong. These were indeed good words. He hoped to hear more.
And the great dragon, Namdrafrom,
Glitstrong said,
hopes and indeed insists that this beautiful nation of Tunbag should carry on preparing these wondrous treasures. Indeed, he has sent gold so that I might find some of these treasures to bring back to his greatness. But alas! We have heard words of treachery and scandalous plans coming out of the lands to the west of your great nation. The humans and the elves who are stealing the earth of its treasures in those lands. They want more of your great people. They would have your skills to serve their greed, and even worse, they would squander those skills to send your people into their primitive and collapsing caves to retrieve the earth's treasures for their greed.
It took Evermore some moments to understand what he had just heard.
Glitstrong, are you saying that the Candle Power are sending Toonbag gemsmiths into their mines?
Then Evermore remembered the revered gnome bard was taking notes for a ballad about himself. How should he sound in this moment? Not uncertain, certainly. No, the wise and cunning Evermore must be certain, and not surprised. Evermore raised his hand to wave off his own question.
No, it is as you say, Glitstrong, of course. It only surprises me how quickly that you have learned of this. And it is a crime against the true people and must not be tolerated. It will not be tolerated. And I will decree that I, Evermore, will be as strong and forceful and cunning as I know how, and we the people of Toonbag will defend ourselves from this evil. We will not let any of our gemsmiths to go to work in the Candle Lands. This has been spoken.
Glitstrong listened and then bowed.
O wise and strong Evermore of Toonbag! I will take these wise and courageous words back to the great Namdrafrome, and I trust with my heart and my gut that your words will please the great Namdrafrome.
Evermore nodded slowly, as a wise gnome would, but inside he was holding back a grin. Those were good words and would cap off his own brilliant speech. Yes. That song that the old bard was writing was going to be good. Evermore was sure.
Earlier, Owl told us that Evermore, the now king of Toonbag, is an evil moron. She said that we would talk about that later. So now is later and I get to talk about that. So, how does an evil moron get to a position of power, and how is an evil moron able to keep his position of power? Well, we aren't really sure if Evermore is totally evil or a total moron. We still have some time to play with these ideas while we are building his character. In Bunny's story so far, we were trying to show Evermore as egocentric. That is, that Evermore thinks about Evermore too much and he doesn't think about the bigger picture and other people. So, when the dwarf diplomat from the dragons, Glitstrong, warns Evermore about trouble on the nation's western borders, the now king's natural reaction should have been to question the suggestion and be sure that it made sense with what the nation already knew. But instead, Evermore was so concerned about his appearance that he made an instant decision to accept Glitstrong's story and pretend that he knew all along. So, does this explain how a moron keeps power? Maybe. He puts his image ahead of the pursuit of the truth, even when it involves the nation's security. The people of Toonbag will accept Evermore's declaration because it sounds strong and confident. It also confirms the gnome population's feelings regarding the Candle Power. Well, it's sort of, people form into groups. We all feel safe in a group. We get a sense of belonging and camaraderie and other warm fuzzies. This is instinct that goes back to when we all evolved from otters. But, the dark side of these fuzzy group feelings is how we feel about outsiders. Those are the guys who hold their cups in the wrong hands or turn their back on the sunrise. They don't know how to behave. So, they are not to be trusted. They are not part of our group. This is how a nation's leaders can use nationalism. The powerful bend their message to fit the group's innate feelings. They focus on the differences to show how their adversaries are not part of the group. Well, is Evermore doing this? Or is Glitstrong doing it to Evermore? Again, is Evermore smart enough to form an evil plan based on these ideas? Well then, okay. What about Evermore's evilness? Is stupidity evil? When you are the ruler of a country, stupidity certainly can break things and hurt people, but should we call it evil? I don't see any intent from Evermore to break things or hurt people, so can we call him evil? Maybe we will see some evil intent in the next bit of the story. Do you think that I spoke too soon? That would be totally embarrassing. Okay, let's see where the story leads and we will try this again later.
And now, we are a day and a half later. This is the next evening after Evermore has received the news from Glitstrong. The now King's Palace has an attached balcony for addressing the people. The people are sitting and standing on the grass of a park. Everyone in the park should be able to see Evermore. Anyone who can't hear him clearly will hear the now King's words repeated by town criers spaced around the clearing. Glitstrong is on the platform, and so is Belly Spark. And the famous and revered bard, Belly Spark, has even agreed to perform a short piece for this event. The gnomes of Toonbag are known to show their emotions. They laugh harder, they cry harder, and when they fight as harder as they know how. Evermore is dressed with the most royal robe and the most ceremonial hat that he could find. When he walks, he struts. Now the sun is setting behind some western clouds, but even in this half-light, the people will know that Evermore is important. The now King Evermore has called a proclausam bridge. This is a gathering that people who want to look important always attend. The size of a proclausam bridge varies on how happy the people are. Evermore is satisfied with this crowd, but he hopes that in the future his crowds might grow. These words he has to deliver will not make people happier, but maybe they will feel more loyal. So Evermore will raise his voice so that everyone will know that they are privileged to hear the now King himself.
Good and loyal people of Toonbag, it is good that you have come. We have important guests who have traveled all the way from the Dragon Lands to share their news.
Evermore pauses his speech so that he can hear his words repeated by the town criers further back in the crowds. The town criers are not really very far away, so everyone is able to hear the now King's words twice. Evermore likes the feeling, and he goes on.
We are most privileged to have the famous and revered gnome bard, Belly Spark, with us. We in Toonbag have never heard such a brilliant and talented word master. It would be too prideful to ask for any performance, but please clap a welcome for our very special guest.
The gnomes in the crowd clap, and because they are gnomes of Toonbag, they clap harder. So, Belly Spark stands up. He had expected this and is prepared. He has tuned his strings for a local folk song. He strums out the note and then, more slowly than the song is ever sung, Belly Spark sings the song very slowly and carefully, as if treasuring each word and each note.
Of Tree Town's end, wave sounds, we the people, will never martyr. We do, live to live, and so, we do, it harder.
Then as soon as he is sure the crowd knows what he is about, Belly Spark picks up the tempo to its normal cadence and motions for the crowd to join in. And then he lets the crowd take over. Life is love. Toonbag loves our life. Our Toonbag is not for barter. Better to strive and fight. So we all do give all harder. And so, as the last notes of the song dissolve, Belly Spark bows to the most hard applause, and then the most talented and revered bard sits, trying not to show the intense relief that he is feeling. And so, it went, 3 days ago. And we move on to now, again. Glitstrong has gone back to the Dragonlands satisfied that Evermore will do as expected. And in a small clearing, in the revenging light, with no campfire to attract attention, the great and revered bard, Belly Spark, fades into history. Well, Belly Spark might come back. Tinkle ponders to himself. It went all right. Well, really. It went as well as he could have hoped. Tinkle carefully folds Belly Spark's beard and puts it into one of his deep pockets of his purse. Yes. This old bard probably will come back. Now Tinkle smears some oil across his face to clean off the bluish tint of the bard. Yes. Word of Belly Spark will spread. The people of Toonbag were happy and proud of their singing. This will help build the bard's reputation. Of course, the problem will be Evermore. Belly Spark had promised to return in some weeks. He will be crushed when he receives word that Belly Spark was waylaid by bandits and was now too badly hurt to do any barding for a long time. Anyway, now Tinkle was alone again. That was okay. Tinkle was used to being alone. And, well, so long as he learned something, even if all that he had learned is what everyone already knew. Evermore is a pompous fool who would believe the dragon's story. And so Tinkle moved on, and the people of Toonbag prepared to defend themselves from the evil they saw in the Candle Lands.
Hello, I am going to talk to you about gnomes. In all of the videos that Wild Art Fly Free has produced, we haven't yet really defined what a gnome is. Most people have some idea what a gnome would look like and how they would behave, but, we think that we need to be more precise and confident in our description. Now that we have a whole nation of gnomes, most people have some idea of gnomes as being small people, and well, that at least we do know. So adult gnomes will normally be between 3 and 4 feet tall. Gnomes also have pointy ears and can have any color of hair. In recent movies, gnomes tend to be carefree and fun-loving. We think that we should go along with these ideas. So, compared to the other peoples of our world, gnomes will be more carefree and fun-loving, on average. But, some gnome cultures and especially many individual gnomes may differ. We have a very big world to fill with all kinds of people, so we don't want to narrow our ideas. There should be room for every person and every group of people. So, expect surprise, if we do this right. So, we have many other important ideas about gnomes and other peoples that we should think about. We can use this opportunity to talk about things like magic. In much of modern culture, elves are more magical than humans and gnomes are more magical than dwarfs. So, On our world of Opsipudok, which peoples are the most magical? Is any group more inherently magical than the others? Maybe every person starts with the same magical aptitude. Or, more likely, magical aptitude is different from individual to individual. So, please take a few moments to decide what arrangement is the best for our world. Then, condense your ideas to 1 or 2 sentences and leave them in the comments. And thank you.